friends. Welcome to the Angie Ambrosetti Show. Let her out to play. I'm Angie, your host, a teenage mom turned multi-six-figure earner, married to the same man for nearly 40 years. I'm a homeschooling mom of 7 and totally unqualified, at least on paper, but wildly called by God. Remember, He doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Here, we are going to talk about it all. Healing from the hard stuff, building a business with heart, raising a big family, walking in faith, and finally breaking free from the lies that said we weren't enough. So if you're ready to stop playing small, shake off the doubt and the shame, and step fully into who you were created to be, girl, you are in the right place. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Angie Ambrosetti Show. I'm so excited that you are here with us today. And one of these times I'm going to start and I'm not going to say I'm so excited. But the truth is, I'm always so excited whenever I start to record a podcast. So today is a little bit different. Today is another solo cast, but my topic is a little bit different and it's a little more vulnerable, to be quite honest with you. And it's something that I've sat with for a long time. And I've kind of mentioned it here and there about coming on and talking about this subject. But today I just felt like it was the day that I felt like it really, like I was just being led to share this. And so I want to talk to you today about infidelity in my marriage of 37 years. And guys, it's not an easy subject to talk about. But I want you to know that we didn't just survive through the midst of this, but God literally redeemed our marriage through these things that happened over the course of many years in our marriage. And before I go any further, I just want to say this. This is not about perfection. It's not about doing it right. It's not about doing it wrong. It's a story about truth, responsibility, forgiveness, and a whole lot of grace. And I just want to be super clear that if you are walking through betrayal right now, there is no one right path. Staying is not weakness. Leaving is not failure. No one gets to decide that for you. Every situation is totally different. This is simply our story, the story of David and Angie Ambrosetti. And for years, honestly, I was that person who said, if he ever does that, if he ever, I'm out. I will leave. I said it with boldness. I said it with clarity. I believed it to my core. And I thought that's really what I meant, because deep down, I thought that's what I meant. And then, as you know, life happens. There was betrayal in our marriage. And I want to be honest here. I want to be super crystal clear. I was unfaithful as well. It wasn't just him. It was me too. And that part, it really does matter because there's no blame. Because healing can never happen when one person carries all of the blame. And redemption definitely doesn't grow in denial. We both had to face what was before us. And now it's been over 26 years since this has happened in our marriage. And I share that not to minimize the pain or say that's behind us. I mean, it is behind us, but there was so much pain that went along with that. But I want to magnify the healing that took place. Because what could have ended us, what could have ended our legacy, what could have ended our marriage all those years ago, it didn't. And it didn't happen once or twice, but it happened 3 times in the course of those early tender years in our marriage. There were moments when, quite honestly, I didn't think we were going to make it. I'm sure there were moments that my husband thought the same thing. Moments of anger and grief and confusion and so much heartbreak. Words that were spoken that never should have been said, right? Emotions, they get the better of us sometimes. Moments where the marriage I thought we had no longer existed. And I remember when I got married thinking, I don't care. Basically, come hell or high water, I'm not going to get divorced. I don't that's not going to be my path, right? But things happen. And then it's right before you. And like I said, I was determined that I was going to leave him if he ever did this. And then here I was. And I did the same thing. And I didn't leave. But honestly, something else was being built within me, within him, and slowly, painfully, and honestly, we had to face ourselves. We had to look at ourselves in the mirror, not just each other, and decide, were we going to work it out over and over and over again? Because like I said, this wasn't just one offense. We had to take responsibility instead of keeping score. And I can be quite frank with you, I'm good at keeping score. But I couldn't be like that anymore. We had to tell the truth, even when it hurt, even when it was scary, even when it was uncomfortable. Because this is what I've learned. When you start lying, you have to lie to cover up the lie, to cover up the lie, to cover up the lie. It gets really confusing, right? We had to choose forgiveness over and over again, not as a feeling, but as obedience. And I can remember the moments of being afraid of him seeing my phone or him seeing whatever. I don't even know if we had computers back then. I don't think we did. I don't even remember. But I remember the phone. And I just remember thinking, always kind of being on edge, right? And now I live in such freedom. I don't worry about that because the Lord has redeemed those years in our marriage. And even though it seems like, 26 years under our belt, being free from that, we are still very cautious and very careful in our relationships with people. And most importantly, in all of this, the most important thing is that we invited the Lord in to all of the mess. The song at church, just as I am. We literally had to go to the Lord just as we were, in the midst of the struggle, in the midst of the pain, in the midst of the ugly, in the midst of the humiliation and betrayal. It wasn't a fix overnight. And like I said, there were years of pain. But to walk us through it together, hand in hand with the Lord, was the only way it was going to be reconcilable for us. And God did redeem it. He didn't waste our brokenness. Every story doesn't end that way. And that's okay. Like I said at the beginning, if you leave, it's not failure. If you stay, it's not weakness. This is just our story and how the Lord worked out the details, how he chose to redeem us and use us as an example. And it's taken many years to come to the place where we could both talk about what had happened in the past briefly, right? But be able to acknowledge it outside of ourselves. And even letting our adult children know, and even being vulnerable enough to come on a podcast and talk about it. Because I have a lot of people that say to me, everything looks perfect from your perspective or from my perspective when I'm looking in at your life, Angie. And I'm like, oh, friend, if you only knew. The Lord has redeemed the years that the locust literally destroyed. And our marriage today, it's not strong because nothing ever happened. It is strong because so much did happen. It's strong because something did and we didn't hide from it. right? And so you might be thinking, well, if you brought the Lord in, then how did you do it again and again? Like, how did those things happen? It was humiliation. It was being humbled, honestly. And we didn't bring the Lord in the very beginning. Like, it was when we were at the end of our rope and we were about to hang ourselves. We didn't know which way to go. We both knew that we didn't want to get divorced. At the time, we had 4 children. We now have 7, but at the time, we only had 4. And we knew we didn't want to do that to our kids. I, grew up, my parents were divorced. My husband's parents were married, but mine were divorced. And my parents did the best that they could with being divorced since I was 2. But I knew I didn't want that for my kids. And so we had to make a decision to fully surrender our hearts and our lives to the Lord and surrender our marriage, surrender our pride, surrender our being to the Lord. Instead of letting our human part of us take over and make all the decisions based on emotion, we had to let the being part. We're human beings. We're 2 parts. We have that human part that we decide on our own, and we have the being part, which is our spirituality that the Lord gives us. And once we started focusing on that being part and asking the Lord to come in and take over and help us and guide us, pick up our feet and move them when we couldn't do it the right way, I like to say, because this is really the truth, but it's my explanation of it, God showed up and he showed off. God is a God that is jealous and he wants our undivided attention. And so when he shows up and he decides he's taking complete control, he shows off in it and he redeemed our marriage. And that was over 26 years ago. Not only did he redeem it in such a way, he gave us 3 additional children. He blessed us with that. He's giving us an opportunity to homeschool them and to show them the way. Not perfect. And I would venture to say that my older kids would say, we're doing it differently with our younger 3. But you don't know what you don't know. And we've learned so much along the way. And now I want to just pause for a moment and speak directly to you, to that one who's listening. If you've been through betrayal before, or you're going through it now, and you thought you were past it, but something still aches inside of you, that's not weakness. You're not weak, you're human, right? Because there are times when things pop up. And we just have to take it to the Lord. Healing is linear, and grief doesn't run on a timeline. That's why I said, even though it's been all these years, there's been times in our marriage where things pop up and we get triggered by different things. And if you're in the middle of something right now, if you're confused or you're angry or you're numb about, is this happening? Or I know it's happening, praying 1 minute and spiraling the next. I've been there. I promise you, I've been there. And so if you're looking in thinking, or you have been looking in thinking, gosh, everything looks perfect from her in her life, it hasn't been. It still isn't perfect. I want you to hear this clearly. None of us are crazy. We're not too dramatic. And you're not alone. Betrayal can literally shake the ground beneath you. It certainly did me. It makes you question your worth, your judgment, your future, but it doesn't have to define you. And it does not disqualify you from love, from joy, or from peace. And if you're in the midst of something, reach out to me. I would love to chat with you. I would love to pray for you. And whether your story leads to restoration like ours did, or whether it leads down a different road, God is still with you. If you hear nothing else in this podcast, today I want you to know that the Lord is still with you. Call on Him and He will listen. He will be found. He is near and dear to the brokenhearted. I've had so much broken heart moments over the years. He doesn't always rush our healing either. It's not always a quick fix. And He doesn't shame our questions. He is a loving Father who wants to comfort and guide us because life is difficult. Marriage is difficult. People, for crying out loud, we're complicated, right? No matter what we're doing, people can be complicated. Ideas and thoughts and conversations can get misconstrued, and you never know where that's going to lead because people are complicated. But difficulty, complication, whatever, it doesn't mean destruction. It means you get to choose what you build from it. And we chose that we were going to rebuild our relationship and our marriage. And I want to speak to the woman who feels like she's disqualified by her past, who thinks if people really knew my story, they would see me differently. They would see us differently. I felt that way for so long. But I heard someone say recently, your story is about you, but it's not for you. And that woke up something in me. It was a reminder that this story that I'm telling you right now, it's my story. It's about me, but it's not for me. It's for someone else. It's for someone else to be encouraged and to know that they are worth it. That they and their life and their marriage, or maybe someone listening isn't even married. And you're thinking, if somebody really knew my story, they would see me differently. The very thing that you think disqualifies you is the thing that qualifies you. That's what I used to think. I don't have a college degree. I was a teenage mom. I changed schools 18 times. Yada, yada, yada. I've had infidelity, all the things, right? Disqualifies me. It's the very thing that qualifies me to talk about this, to help someone else. Because let me tell you, redemption does not erase the past. It just redeems it. And I even hate to say just, it totally redeems it. Your past is not erased, but it can be redeemed. God never asks us for perfection. He wants honesty and He wants surrender, which can be the hardest part, right? And if He can redeem betrayal and shame and broken trust, He certainly can redeem anything that He chooses. So remember this, friend, you are not beyond healing, nor was I. Your marriage is not beyond hope, nor was mine. And your story is not over, and neither is mine. I'm trusting in the one who wrote the story. It's called history, His story, right? Whether your path leads to restoration, separation, or something new, God is still present. And life will still be difficult. It can be, right? My marriage still isn't perfect. There are a lot of difficult days. But what we do with that difficulty is what really matters. And before I close, I want to ask you something. If this episode spoke to you, if it brought comfort, clarity, maybe even tears, would you share it with a friend? Maybe you know someone who may be walking through betrayal right now. Someone who feels alone in their marriage. Someone who needs hope, but doesn't know where to find it. You never know how God might use a simple share to remind someone that grace is real, healing is possible, and nothing surrendered to Him is ever wasted. Nothing. And so while I didn't get down in the deep dredges of all the things that happened in my marriage when we had this infidelity, you know that we've been married for 37 years. And it was 26 years past since any of this has happened. So those first 10 years in the early parts of our marriage, they were vulnerable. We were young. We were selfish, self-centered, thinking only of ourselves and our own needs and our own desires and our own emotions. And that can happen so easily. But like I said, we desired to bring the Lord in and ask him and honestly beg him to restore our marriage, to heal us from the brokenness, to heal us from pride. And he indeed has done that. But again, I want to reiterate, this is our story. But if any of this touched you in such a way, please let me know. Please share this with a friend because, like I said, the story of our lives, it's about us, but it's not for us. It's for someone else who needs the encouragement, who needs the uplifting, who needs a listening ear sometimes. So thank you so much for being here today, for listening. Thank you for trusting me with your heart today. If you have questions or you want to chat with me, please let me know because I really do desire to help women feel elevated in who they are and walking with Christ, and specifically knowing that if they turn aside from the human part of who they are and embrace the spiritual part of who the Lord has called us to be and seek his will, seek his guidance, it can literally change everything for you like it did for me. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope you have a great day. That's it for today, friends. Thanks for tuning in with me today. I hope today's episode stirred your soul, sparked your faith, and reminded you that your story is far from over. Keep walking in freedom. Keep showing up bold, and never forget, God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Be sure to leave a review, subscribe, or share this podcast with a friend who needs to hear it as well. Until next time, keep letting her out to play because the world needs your fire.